Hey friends, today I'm going to debunk 7 common myths about living in Denmark. I have lived in Denmark for over 10 years and believe me, I have heard everything. Everything from everyone is happy all the time, which spoiler alert, not always, to getting here, rich is so hard, taxes will eat all your money and so on. We're gonna cut through all the noise and separate fact from fiction, and I'll give you the real picture of what life in Denmark really looks like. If you're new here, my name is Mario. I'm originally from South America, now living the Danish life, and on this channel I help expats in Denmark on achieving financial independence, living a rich life, buying a house, and literally being happy here. Myth number 1, everyone in Denmark is happy all the time. And you hear this constantly. Denmark consistently lands at near the top of the World Happiness Report ranking, so we're number 2 again in 2025. Is Denmark then really happy? I would say yes and no. It doesn't mean to be happy in this context that Danes are walking around 24/7, super smiley and so on. It just happens that the Danish concept of happiness, or the Danish word for this you would say is lykke, is much more closer to contentment or satisfaction with life and trust in society that is into this constant bubbly joy. It's about having realistic expectations, appreciation and stability, and knowing there's a strong safety net. It's a quiet and kind of steady kind of happiness, not a loud and flashy one. And let's be real, there's definitely things to not be happy about in Denmark. Seasonal depression or the winter blues is a real thing. It gets really dark here, not just the cold, but it's just dark. People just feel the lack of energy in winter, and maybe this can explain that relatively high use of antidepressants in Denmark. In my experience, living in Denmark as a father, also especially now, the contentment piece really resonates with me. When you have a normal career, when you are doing a normal person things, in Denmark you have a lot of time for yourself and for your spending with your family and friends and loved ones than in other places. Maybe because the work hours are very reasonable, also because you have long holidays, also because if you live in the city, commutes are very, very short. Hence, you can actually spend a lot of time with your family. And also because it's safe, you can spend a lot of time outdoors and the forest and so on. That drives a lot of real contentment for a lot of people. Also knowing that if something really bad happens to you, the system will take care of you. That again doesn't happen in other places. And that drives again this contentment. Is it that super crazy happiness? Maybe not, but again, it means that people are normally living happy and fulfilling lives as well. Myth number 2 is that the high taxes mean in Denmark you can't build long-term wealth. And this is the real elephant in the room. We can talk about happiness and so on, but taxes are a real deal because Denmark has really very high taxes, and that's an objective measure. Income taxes can climb up to 55% on your income for top earners. You have a 25% VAT or sales tax, or MOMS as it's called here, on top of basically everything you buy. Plus, investment taxes are the highest in the world, including with unrealized gains, link down over here, just to know, and it's just terrible, and I won't be able to sugarcoat that. But does it mean that you can't build wealth in Denmark? I would say that's false. It's just a different approach, because let's look at the numbers. While direct comparisons are tricky, the median net wealth per adult in Denmark is around 700,000 Danish krona in 2023. That's the last numbers I have in hand at least. So that's around $100,000. It might sound lower than in some other wealthy nations, but remember that is the median. That means that half of the population has more, half less. And I would say the average wealth is much higher, skewed again by the very wealthy. And this number just doesn't appreciate the full picture, because basically in Denmark your basic needs are covered with free healthcare, free education, strong safety net. I mean, taxes pay for this. People have more capacity to save and have investment of their disposable income, even if taxes are high. So in that way, financial stability is excellent here. And also there's a kind of a specific Danish ways to build wealth. I talked a lot about this in the channel, especially regarding real estate. The fact that capital gains on the sale of your primary residence, meaning the home you live in, are tax-free, is a massive advantage comparing to many other countries that don't have that setup. So for most Danes and most people living in Denmark, buying property has been a main path to wealth over the last few decades. Doesn't mean that you can't build, it's much harder to build wealth outside of real estate. I made a lot of videos explaining this, but again, that's the way to go. If you invest in real estate and hope the market goes up, you can definitely earn a lot of money here as well. Also, just as a side note, despite the taxes, Denmark has an actually high concentration of millionaires. So close to 10% of the Danish adults have assets over $1 million in total assets. That's placing Denmark among the countries with the highest millionaire density. So just as a FYI. Myth number 3 is that Danish people are cold and unfriendly. And I hear this one all the time, especially from newcomers. And honestly, when I first moved to Denmark from Argentina, I felt the social interactions were completely different. Back home, it's just with strangers, you're loud, you're expressive, and here it's like, whoa, not so much in public. Are Danes like cold then? You can definitely say that they are private. There's a strong respect for personal space and boundaries, and the social culture is different. But it's not that it's worse or better than other places. Some people tell that you should look at this into like coconut versus peach, like that some cultures are like peaches that are soft and friendly from the outside, but with a hard pit, like the private life. And the Danes are more like coconuts with like a really hard outer shell. In public, reserved, it takes effort to crack them open. But once you're inside the circle of trust, and then the friendships are warm, genuine, deep, and loyal. It's like quality over quantity. My experience here as a foreigner, I can tell you for sure, there is a lot of backing to this. It's hard to become friends with a lot of Danes and to build long-lasting friendships, but it's definitely not impossible. The things that have worked for me is that being part of social activities where social has to be part of it, be it improv theater, being like doing martial arts, being something that you actually need to hang out and talk to a lot of other people. And if you do that regularly, you'll soon build this type of friendships. Also, if you have kids, to have people over from the parents and spend time with them, talk about the kids. There's a point where at some point you just become more friends with them. But it's definitely not as easy as to be friends with people as it is in other places. You just need to put in the effort. Myth number 4 is that everything closes early and that nightlife in Denmark is boring. This is interesting for me because people keep talking about this and I never saw it as a main problem. Copenhagen is not like at least, if you go to the countryside maybe, right? But cities like Copenhagen, it's not like a village that everything shuts down like at 6 p.m. Like that's kind of a perception from some people. While many retail shops do close 5:30 or 6 o'clock on a weekdays, and maybe even earlier on Saturdays, supermarkets are open until normally 8 or 9, which, okay, it's not like midnight like in other places, but still good enough. Like, honestly, it has never been a big issue for me. Say many years ago, the supermarkets even used to be closing earlier, but now I think it's very reasonable. In terms of nightlife, if you come from a big city like Berlin, or you look like I was from Buenos Aires, there's less nightlife options than in a huge city. In Copenhagen, Aarhus, or other cities, there's a lot of things going on at night as well. Like in Copenhagen, you have areas like Kutbyen, you have like Nordebro, Vesterbro. There's a million bars and lounges and coffees, and you can actually have pretty good parties. My first years as a single guy in Denmark were amazing in terms of how much fun it was. That's on the party side. While there's not that eating out culture to the level that you see in Southern Europe, it's actually getting more like that now. Maybe more on the fancier end. There's not a lot of cheap, good restaurants, I would say. But there's still a lot of things I think there are 34 Michelin-starred restaurants. So if you want to have in this vibe of going out and spending time out in the evening, it's becoming a lot better. Also, just a quick heads up, right? So depends on the season, right? But I have seen that you have a lot of really good traditions, like from the J-Day, where the new Christmas beers come out, and there's a big parties on that as well. Or also like festival season, like the Roskilde Festival. That's a crazy parties as well. So you just need to know where you're going and know the little landscape before you just say Denmark is boring in terms of parties. Myth number 5 is that the Danish healthcare system makes you wait forever for treatment. And you often hear complaints about waiting times in the Danish public healthcare system. And look, it's not perfect, but the criticism is also not completely fair or balanced. My experience so far is that emergency care is excellent and prompt if you have a real serious or acute condition. If that's the case, you get treated quickly. I had experiences with friends who need urgent care, and it has been efficient and high quality. For instance, even I have one of my neighbors who just actually had to have a surgery like in an emergency, and things got really well taken care of for him. But not always the case. If the system demands or thinks that your situation is not so urgent, they might just push you to the side, and that's not nice when you pay so much in taxes, right? But again, things to know. What do people complain across the board is that for non-urgent planned procedures or specialist appointments, there can be long waiting lists. So sometimes they say like the average waiting time in non-urgent hospital treatments, it's like around 40 to 45 days in Denmark. And that's something that the government is actively working on reducing. But it's still really long. What people here miss is that in Denmark there's something called the Udvidet Frit Sygehusbelg, or like extended free choice of hospital, which means that if the public system cannot offer you an investigation or treatment within 30 days for many conditions, you generally have the right to choose a private hospital or clinic, and the public system will pay the bill for you. This acts like as a safety valve against like these very long waits. One of the biggest plus here is that everyone has equal access, regardless of income, to the system. You don't pay to see your GP. Hospital visits are free. When my second child was born, we basically had also the first one, like we had both kids excellent care throughout the whole pregnancy thing. Cost us nothing, like literally zero. So in other places you need to mortgage your house for it, maybe, I don't know. But here it was very smooth, and literally nobody goes bankrupt because they got sick. And that peace of mind is incredibly valuable, something that I personally appreciate, and I think like circle back to the contentment piece from the first myth. I mean, that closes the loop. Myth number 6 is that you need to speak perfect Danish to integrate, and this is a big concern for a lot of expats, and I get asked about this a lot, and I can address this personally. I have lived here for over 10 years. My Danish has improved. I can definitely manage my daily life, understand conversation, talk to people. Is it perfect? Absolutely not, far from it, but it works. Actually, if you're curious, you can see me speaking Danish. I made a whole video, like 10 minutes long, speaking Danish. You can see it over here. Especially in Copenhagen, within the international companies, honestly, people speak English all the time. Denmark consistently ranks among the very top non-native English speaking countries in the world, according to a lot of indexes. Like something like 9 out of 10 Danes speak English almost to a good degree. And basically you can get away with English in the banking, doctor, shops, work, anywhere, especially in the capital. I have yet to meet someone who doesn't speak English. If you want to go to the Danish route, the government also provides free lessons for a few years after you move into Denmark, so you can learn the language. But again, for a lot of people, because everyone speaks English, you need to think like, unless you want to live in Denmark for the long term and integrate, or you have kids and you want to not be left out when all the other parents are Danish, type of situation, like happens to me, you don't really need to bother. Of course, Danes would appreciate if you speak their language, but again, don't feel that you need to, because again, you might have other priorities. Myth number 7, last but not least, is that Denmark is a socialist country. This one pops out all the time, particularly from the American perspective or the American news, and it's like the often confusion of comprehensive welfare state with socialism. Let's be crystal clear, Denmark is not a socialist country. It's like we talk objectively speaking, it's a regulated free market economy with a strong social safety net. How do we know? Let's look at the evidence. Denmark consistently ranks as one of the easiest and best places in the world to do business. The World Bank last major ease of doing business report ranked Denmark 4th globally and number 1 in Europe. It's just very easy to open a business. You get taxed like crazy, so that's not so nice, but again, it's a good and easy place to open a business. There's robust private ownership and a dynamic private sector. While pinning down the exact percentage can be complex depending on definitions, but private companies are the engine of the economy. You have a lot of big private companies driving a lot of exports, for example, from here. And the model itself is described as this social democracy or Nordic model of welfare state. It combines this capital economy, capitalistic economy, market economy, but you do have big social benefits funded by high taxes. And this is the universal healthcare we have been talking about, free education, unemployment support, and so on. The core idea of the model Denmark has is the blending of, capitalism with this strong safety nets, and it also invests heavily in the human capital, in the people, because of cohesion and smallness of the country in a way, fostering high levels of trust. This is a specific blend, uniquely Danish, but you can also say also widely in Scandinavia, but it's definitely not socialism in the traditional sense. All right, to wrap up, so is life in Denmark perfect? Well, not really. It's not like a perfect or fairy tale utopia, nor is also the oppressive gray socialist state that some people imagine. It's like a real country with real people, with real advantages and real challenges. The reality, as always, is much more nuanced, and it's also more interesting than in the stereotypes. For me, living here for over a decade with my family, the pros outweigh the cons, but not be the right fit for everyone. If you're considering moving here, I just hope that this gives you a more clear and more realistic picture of what to expect. Also, if you enjoyed this video, check out my video over here of 100 things I love about Denmark for a little more happy angle as well. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.